Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today, on this Christmas holiday, we will discuss the most amazing and intriguing historical occurrences. We're going to talk about a tremendous event that happened on Christmas Eve, 1914, in the damp, muddy trenches of the Western Front during World War I, often known as the Great War. In his memoirs, Bruce Bairnsfather, a British machine gunner who went on to become a well-known cartoonist, discussed it. In an attempt to get warm, he was spending Christmas Eve shivering in the muck, just like a majority of his fellow infantrymen in the 1st Battalion of the Royal Warwickshire Regiment. The last few months had been largely spent in combat with the Germans. He was presently crouching in a trench in the Bois de Polichtiot region of Belgium. And these are his words. "Here I was in this horrible clay cavity," Bairnsfather wrote, "miles and miles from home, cold, wet, through and covered with mud. There didn't seem the slightest chance of leaving except in an ambulance." His days and nights were characterized by an unending loop of anxiety and insomnia, stale biscuits, and cigarettes that were too wet to light. While he was crouching in the trench that was only 3 feet deep by 3 feet broad, singing breaks out into the trenches. Bairnsfather heard a noise at around 10 o'clock at night in the evening. He remembered, and I listened. I heard voices murmuring far across the field in the shadowy darkness beyond. "Do you hear the Boches, or the Germans, kicking that racket over there?" he asked a soldier in his dugout. "Yes," was the reply. "They've been working at it for quite a while." On Christmas Eve, the Germans were singing carols. Some of the British soldiers started singing back into the dark. Bairnsfather remembered, "All of a sudden, we heard a bewildered shouting from the other side. Everyone paused to hear. Once more the shout was heard. An enemy soldier's voice could be heard speaking English with a heavy German accent. 'Come over here,' he said in response. A British soldier replied, 'You come halfway, I come halfway.' In other parts of the front, Germans began to sing Silent Night, and to place trees with candles over their trenches, called Tannenbaum. Some areas, on both sides, had singing battles of Christmas carols. One story said a German shouted, 'English, tomorrow we don't shoot if you don't shoot.' In no man's land, German and British soldiers met. The world would be shocked, and history would be made in the years that followed. Nervously, enemy soldiers started to emerge from their trenches and gather in no man's land, which was surrounded by barbed wire fences. Typically, the Germans and the British used streaking bullets to communicate over no man's land, with sporadic, polite exceptions to gather the dead and unarmed. Now, however, there were greetings and handshakes. In the chilly night, the troops joined in an impromptu Christmas celebration by exchanging wine, tobacco, and singing songs. Bairnsfather was astounded by what he was seeing. The real, useful warriors of the German army were present. Not a single word of hatred was present on either side. Furthermore, it was not limited to that particular battlefield. Beginning on the eve of Christmas, unplanned ceasefires were observed by small groups of French, German, Belgian, and British/United Kingdom troops all over the Western Front. There have been rumors of some on the Eastern Front as well. According to the reports, some of these unofficial truces persisted for several days after Christmas. It was undoubtedly a pleasant diversion from the hell they had been living through for those who took part. Since the war had only been going on for 6 months, most troops assumed it would have been over by now, or it would have ended soon, and they would be able to spend the holidays with their families. The war would not only continue for 4 more years, but it would also turn out to be the bloodiest conflict in human history at that time. New and destructive instruments of war could now be mass-produced thanks to the Industrial Revolution, including weapons capable of firing hundreds of rounds per minute and fleets of aircraft dropping bombs on top of your heads. Additionally, soldiers' morale had fallen due to the terrible news on both sides. The German casualties in the Battle of Marne a week later followed the catastrophic Russian defeat at Tannenberg in August of 1914. The Western Front spanned hundreds of miles by 1914. When the winter finally arrived and the cold set in, tens of thousands of soldiers had already lost their lives, and countless more were suffering in the front line trenches. However, Christmas then arrived. These are some first-hand accounts of the Christmas Truce. Many of the period letters and diaries contain descriptions of the Christmas Truce. My company happened to be in the firing line on Christmas Eve, and it was my turn to go into a ruined house and remain there until 6:30 on the Christmas morning, wrote J., reading a British rifleman in a letter to his wife about the 1914 holiday. The Germans began shouting and singing in good English in the early hours of the morning. "Are you a rifle brigade? Have you got a spare bottle? If so, we'll come halfway and you come the other half," they yelled. Reading explained, "Later in that day, they came towards us. Additionally, our men went out to get to know them. Some of them gave us cigars and cigarettes. After we shook hands that day was so peaceful that it felt like a dream, and we never fired. Here we were laughing and chatting to the men, whom only a few hours before were trying to kill us," was how another British soldier, John Ferguson, described the situation. German soldiers are described in their other letters and diaries lighting Christmas trees around their trenches with candles. A British soldier set up a temporary barber shop and charged Germans a couple of cigarettes each for a haircut. According to one German infantryman, according to some other sources as well, there were many vivid instances of men assisting enemy forces in gathering their dead and helping bury them. Then, the miracle soccer game occurred. In the following interview, British fighter Ern Williams recounted his memories of an improvised soccer match played on the snowy field. "I don't know where, but the ball arrived from somewhere. It was simply a basic kickabout after they made up some goals, and one of our guys went into a goal. I should estimate that a few hundred people participated." A pickup soccer game was also mentioned in the diary of a German lieutenant, Kirk Schmisch, of the 134th Saxon Infantry Regiment, a school teacher who understood both German and English. The diary was found in an attic near Leipzig in 1999 and was written in an antiquated German shorthand. The English eventually pulled a soccer ball from their trench, and shortly after that, a spirited game followed, he stated. How strange it was, but how marvelously wonderful. The same was true for the English officers. Christmas, the festival of love, thus succeeded in temporarily uniting moral adversaries into friends. The press began to report on the Christmas truce gradually. One soldier stated in a later published in the Irish Times on January 15th of 1915, "Christmas has come and gone, certainly. The most extraordinary celebration of it of any of us will ever experience. The dead bodies which had been gathered together and laid out in rows were surrounded by a large crowd of officers and men, English and German, according to his description. According to the British soldier, the Germans were quite affable." However, not everyone supported the truce. The narrative of Private Percy Huggins, a Briton, who was lounging in no man's land with the Germans when he was shot in the head by a sniper and caused further carnage in no man's land, is one of the few surviving accounts of a Christmas truce that went wrong. The sergeant who replaced Huggins in an attempt to exact revenge was also later assassinated. Such a thing should not happen in wartime, another story says of a German reprimanding his fellow soldiers during the Christmas Truce. Do you no longer possess a German sense of honor? This was a man named Adolf Hitler, who was 25 years old at the time. The celebration did not sit well with high command either. Pope Benedict had pleaded for a Christmas ceasefire between the warring nations on December 7th of 1914. The leaders of the warring nations had been urged by the Pope to declare a truce for Christmas, requesting that the guns may fall silent at least upon the night that the angels sang. The official plea was disregarded. Therefore, it is said that the heads of all the armies were appalled when soldiers began unexpectedly emerging and giving an unauthorized truce. According to a private report by British General Sir Horace Smith Dorrien, this is the only illustrative of the apathetic state we are gradually sinking into. According to some stories of the Christmas truce, soldiers were reprimanded for fraternizing, and the highest leadership told them to never do so again. Many refused to even shoot back upon their new so-called friends. Some were imprisoned, others were executed as cowards or traitors, and in some were shipped off to other parts of the war to possibly die there, and to teach other soldiers a lesson on to never make an unauthorized truce. No Christmas truces seem to have taken place during the remainder of the First World War, a war that would eventually cost the lives of about 15 million people. However, in 1914, these intriguing holiday gatherings served as a reminder to all the parties involved that people, not military forces, fought conflicts. In the years that followed, the truce served as an inspiration for everything from popular songs and ads to even TV, movies, and artwork. One rifleman of the Britain 3rd Rifle Brigade recounted a German soldier saying, "Today we have peace. Tomorrow you fight for your country, I fight for mine. Good luck." As for the Britons, Bruce Bairnsfather, he summed up the distinct historic moment this way: "Looking back on it all, I wouldn't have missed that unique and weird Christmas day for anything." The 1914 Christmas Truce is still regarded as a remarkable period in military history. Soldiers on both sides disregarded the atrocities of war in order to enjoy a moment of humanity amidst the harsh and desolate circumstances of the Western Front. The broad and impromptu truce, which was accompanied by carols, gifts, and even a football game, exposed the intense desire for peace and normalcy that was hidden under the conflict's surface. Well, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video about the Christmas truce, and I hope you had a happy holidays and a Merry Christmas to you all. So please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and please watch all my other videos that I've done in the past, that I'm doing now, and watch them all in the future as well. I would greatly appreciate your support.